right, welcome to the Third Due First In podcast. Back after having a week off. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, Steve.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Doing well. Gino's not here tonight. He is under the weather, and also don't think Stella or Sanchez will come out in the cold weather. So that's how we do it. So. Anything new with you?
No, I don't name my cars, so I really don't have much to talk about there. I hope Gene's feeling better.
Yep. Hopefully we'll have him back next episode. So just want to say I'm wearing my, I don't know if you can see my new Heck Team Homes hoodie. If you're looking for a real estate agent, make sure you go to heckteamhomes.com. You can find me there too. And if you're in the fire service, I'll even hook you up with a little discount. So looking to buy or sell property in the greater Pittsburgh area, reach out, go to Heck Team Homes. Some real estate agents.
Is that our new sponsor?
Might be. Yeah, we'll see. We're in negotiations right now, so we'll see.
All right.
So without further ado, I want to bring in our first guest. Give me 1 second here. I'm a little off after being off a week. I'm a little out of practice here.
Oh, I see it. Go ahead, start 1 second.
Copy, requesting second.
All right. We are joined by Robert Ulrich, author of The 40-Year Deployment, First Responders Journey. You can see the book right there on our update table there. And let me also throw up a link here. While we do that, welcome, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Doing well. Yourself?
Oh, I'm on the right side of the dirt, so I'm good.
There you go.
So let me get this up here. So if anybody's interested, well, as we talk about the book, you can go to that QR code there. It goes to the Amazon link where you can purchase the book. So before we begin with that, let's start by having you walk us through your career and how you got where you are today.
Well, I started in good old Pennsylvania at 15 years old, like a lot of guys and gals in the business. Started as a junior firefighter with the Washington Township Fire Department, and town of about 1,500 people. We ran about 100 calls a year, but I loved the job even back then, and was there as a firefighter, assistant chief, and eventually became the chief of department in 2006. Worked a couple of career jobs up there and became an instructor for the state. Started teaching in 2009, doing local level classes, bouncing around the state and having a ball doing that. Then in 2015, I decided, let's try something different. Let's see if I could actually make it out in the big world. Little fish in a big fish in a small pond. I wanted to see if I could make it someplace else. And I was tired of snow. Came down to South Carolina, worked for the city of Goose Creek for 6 or 7 years until 2022, 23, something like that. That department ran about 6,000 calls a year on the fire side, about 5,000 calls or so on the EMS side. So it was a busy atmosphere. And Goose Creek, for everybody's reference, is basically a suburb of Charleston. So everybody that doesn't want to pay Charleston prices but wants to be close to Charleston, that's where they live. They live in the suburbs. Then in 2022, 2023, I came up to the city of Georgetown, which is about 10 minutes, 15 minutes from my house. Shortened up the commute and currently serve as a lieutenant on C shift. Best shift there, we know. But everybody thinks that. But and that's kind of the journey in a short abbreviated session.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about Georgetown. Like how many stations you guys, how many personnel you have?
Georgetown, we currently have 2 stations, projected to build the third one in the next couple years. The standing population for the town is right around 10 to 15,000. We're surrounded by Georgetown County. We're on the coast. Georgetown is actually the second oldest city in South Carolina, so it has that Charleston feel, but on a much smaller scale. But we have a lot of industry. It reminded me a lot of home. Goose Creek was great for the experiences I got there in a larger suburban department. Georgetown feels like home. It's got that main street, front street that's like Victorian construction, along with some modern construction, some mixed-use commercial. So it was a mixed bag of everything. It wasn't just cookie-cutter homes that I saw at my previous employment. So that's kind of Georgetown in a nutshell. It's almost like any small borough in Pennsylvania, but with the ocean really close.
Yeah. What kind of fire trucks do you buy?
We're traditionally an E1 department. Over the last 2 purchases, we are making that transition over to Pierce. As long as they get me to the scene and get me in the building, I'm happy with them, and that's I'd take a bucket and a water cup to get in on fire. So whatever they're letting me ride in, I get to be a fireman every day. I'll do it.
Nice. So I know you talk about in the book about why you decided to do the book, but it sort of reminded me of I know over my career when I worked in 911, everybody always asks, oh, what's some of the interesting calls you had? And I always thought, man, I wish I would have wrote some of the calls I've taken over my career down. I could have made a book out of it, or people would always say that. But you sort of talked about that in your book. So what actually got you to decide to write this book?
Well, like I said in the book, early on, you had the old timers saying, man, if you wrote one thing down every shift or every day that you call you ran into, at the end of 20 years, you'd have a book nobody would believe. And that always stuck in my head, and it bounced around. You always talk about it. But when I was terminated from the city of Goose Creek, I was in a pretty bad place personally. The situation I went through there, not bashing anybody, it is what it is. It was catharsis for me. I really started to assess my career and go, man, am I on the right track? And one day I started jotting notes down, and it grew from there. And I thought it was going to be more about leadership and experiences and things like that. But the one thing it kept dovetailing back was, one, my experiences in Pennsylvania were the foundation that got me where I am. But the mentors that helped me and pushed me along the way, dude, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am without those guys.
Yeah.
So I know in the book, I mean, you lay it all out there. You talk about, your termination, stuff like that, but you lay all out there your, personal issues that, being in the public service has caused you. But you write earlier in the book that the job will change you. So for the firefighters that are watching, what were the changes that you didn't expect when you started?
Well, I grew up watching Emergency, and they always seemed happy, but when you're on this job every day, you realize something pretty quickly. It's not emergency. You do not run a structure fire, technical rescue, and a really cool medical call every shift. That don't happen. But the pace of it, it's a job. It's a blue collar job. You got to love your job, but there's a price to pay because you're going through that emotional. And if you worked at 911, it's like the emotional trauma that you're picking up every day. And I wasn't real young when I came down here. I was 45. Now I think 45 is pretty young. You don't realize the emotional trauma you're picking up pennies at a time, and you start to sacrifice things because you love the job so much. Like in the book, I talked about I didn't hunt or fish anymore. I was working multiple jobs. I was into the job. I'm still into the job, but I decided I need to have more of a work-life balance. That your opinion of the world darkens down, I guess I should say. You become more aware that there's evil in the world and you have to deal with it. And if you let it pull you down in, it will pull you down in.
So you mentioned earlier on the book too about how the job will rewire your brain, and even off duty, you're scanning buildings and looking for hazards and stuff like that. But what point did you realize that in your career that it did change you?
Well, a little bit in Pennsylvania, because my first career job was with William Cameron Engine Company in Lewisburg, and that was a combination department. Once again, I was living it every day. And when your wife says to you, you don't have to check the fire extinguishers in the hotel we're staying at, you go, okay, I might have a problem here. It was a problem. I'm just that much into the job. But you realize every moment you're never ramping down. You know what I mean? You're always heightened. You're always looking, checking building. Oh, that looks like a type 5. Oh, that's type 3, but they remodeled that. Oh, yeah. If you don't detach and diffuse once in a while, and that was probably about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I thought, oh, this is a slippery slope. And I went further down the slope for a while. Now I try to maintain that balance. When I'm off duty, I'm off duty.
Yeah, I know. So I'm out and about in a retail environment or something like that, and I'll be like, oh, that fire exit's blocked, and just always thinking of stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and I've always been that way. I worked in textiles. I talked about a little bit in the book. My wife loved it when we went to Hobby Lobby because every piece of ribbon or strap, I was just into whatever I do. I think it's my obsessive compulsive personality. I check it out and go, oh, there's a defect there. And I'm still that way with, like, somebody parks in the fire lane. I like to talk to those people.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it when we take an emergency vehicle out to lunch sometimes, and we're not even parking in the fire lane, but then you'll see other people parking in the fire lane and going in. Hey, so one of the calls that I'm sure it had a big impact on you. You talked about triaging the motor vehicle accident. It ended up being 2 childhood friends.
Yeah.
So that happened pretty early on in your career, I believe.
Yeah.
How
I
do
was
How do
still
you
in the
think that
system.
impacted the rest of your career, dealing with something like that so early in your career?
Well, I think it was tough because it was personal, and that was the one thing I really loved about when you're in Pennsylvania and you're in a volunteer department. Everybody knows you. Like I said, I grew up in a small town. I'm 55 years old, and I'll still go home and people call me Little Bobby Ulrich. You know, it's just that type of attitude. So it impacted me personally, and I didn't feel I was there for my friends. You know, I did, but I always go back to, did I do everything I can at the best I could? Yeah, but it still doesn't take it all away. The beauty of getting a career position in someplace I didn't know, people are anonymous to me now. You know, not to say I didn't care for them any less, but that personal contact and personal responsibility was kind of drawn away. But I still think of that when I see a mother grieving over a son or a husband that's lost his wife. It still hits you, that personal connection. The more you're in this job, the more you understand that it hits you.
So what do you think, like, for younger firefighters or EMTs, paramedics, like, how can they prepare for the emotional side of making decisions like that when they run into a situation like that?
I can tell you for myself personally, at that time, and it's still as clear as a bell in my head. My brother was also on the call. We were the first 2 that got there, and he was like, "Holy cow, this is so and so." I said, "We have to triage them." You fall back to your training. It's after the call. After you call, when you get home and you go, you take that breath, that relaxation breath, then it seeps in. You put the walls up from your training and you perform like you're supposed to. But once the call's over, you're done. And sometime after that, the walls go down and you go, holy crap, what did I just do? You know, and to tell young responders, do your job, but then talk about it afterwards. You know, for guys, I like to say I'm a more tenured person. I don't like to say old. That's terrible. For more tenured guys, you know, there was that stigma back then. You bottle it up, carry it with you. You'll be fine. Drink some more whiskey, drink another cigar, you know. But now I really encourage young guys, hey, if it bothers you, I do it as a tool with my newer personnel. You good? Yeah, I'll have to ask them out when we're coming back. But then the next day, hey, how you doing? I might call them at home if it was a rough call. These young guys, they can't be afraid to talk about it. And it's not weakness. It's not anything like that, because you think you're by yourself in your own pain, but then you talk to the guy next to you and he goes, man, that was shitty. You just opened the door. You have sharing your experiences, and you're not by yourself with this. You know, talk about it. You know, is the best advice I can give anybody about it.
Yeah, I asked somebody else, another guest, Brucker. I asked him this question. I want to ask you: do you find that the younger firefighters are possibly somewhat conditioned, and it doesn't really seem to bother them as much as it did us?
Somewhat.
Or do you
I have to
think
agree.
they're
I
still
have
just
to agree
giving
with
it
that
away?
statement. I believe our newer responders
Lost them.
Give us a second. We might have just lost money.
Yeah.
I know you were talking about that, about like the video games and stuff like that
Yeah, I don't know.
these kids are exposed to now. That
I don't know what it is.
we're back.
there you go.
I think the kids are more conditioned. I heard you talking about it's on the news cycle. It's in video games. It's in music lyrics. It's all over. So they're seeing things that this simple farm boy from Elmsport, Pennsylvania, never thought he would see, you know. So these kids are getting normal exposure to it. And are they affected? Yes. But I think they're conditioned coming into a little bit different level than we were.
Yeah.
I think it seems like it's getting a little bit better, because you're right. Like, I remember when I started, and it was just always the mentality, you just sort of sucked it up. You didn't talk about it. And,
Right.
but it seems like now I think the younger generation is more open to, talking about it or seeking help. So that's a good
Well,
thing.
that's what happens. You tuck it away, and then it comes and gets you later in life. But I truly wonder, and I wonder if it will come get the young generation, or if they've figured out a way and evolved in a way that some of them can just tuck it away forever.
Yeah. Well, I like to use the analogy. We have a bucket and we carry those stones with us, and sometimes the bucket's going to get full if you don't empty it out once in a while.
Yeah.
I had an experience with it where we'd called in a critical incident stress debriefing team because I saw some of the younger guys they were running a string of rough calls and it was affecting them. So we do this briefing. We're saying, or the counselors are talking, and it's a great time. Everybody's airing their things out, and the lead counselor goes, "We're going to take a break. Everybody step out of the room for a hot minute, and we're going to come back." And they said, "Except for you, Mr. Ulrich." I'm like, "What did I do?" Here, I was still bottling things up, and it was coming out, and like, well, that's not my problem. I wasn't the one killed, or whatever it would be. Yeah. And found out through that, and it was one of the best things. I had to go to counseling for it, and went through that. And I'll openly admit it. I tell people it's the best thing I ever did because they equipped me with tools to identify why not to bottle it up. The stigma, yes, still back in there, there's a little bit of stigma, but it prepared me for the rest of my career. Don't be afraid to go to a counseling. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody, informal or formal. You'll end up much better in the long run, and you'll last longer in this game.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your book, one of your mentors, Jeff Cole. What was one of the lessons from him that you think every firefighter should hear?
Do your job and do it well. Don't be a turd.
Try not to suck.
Try not. I love that line on your guys' opener. Jeff was as old school as they come. He wasn't big into new and flashy trinkets. You do the basics and you do them well, and you take pride in what you do every day, because fire can kill you the same in Podunk, PA, as it can in New York City. So there's no excuse not to take pride in your craft and do it well. Everything. If you're going to scrub the shitters, be the best scrubber you have ever seen in everything you do. And that was his overall mentality. Yeah. He invested everything into the job, and he loved to pass it along to people.
So you tell us a little bit more about Jeff. He was an instructor. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was our first instructor. And I talk about it in the book a little bit, how our department, I love my home department. I'll always be Washington Township. I still have their live feed. I still have their active. So if they don't realize they're going on calls, I'm still riding with them because I listen to it on the scanner feed. But he was our first instructor that came out and taught us the basics. Back in the day when it was firefighting 16-hour class. God bless you, kid. Go fight fire. But he was the type of guy, and he had kind of had a reputation in our area of, he's gruff. He's mean to people. He's terrible. No, if you wanted to learn, he would give you everything he had. Every bit of information he would set and give it to you. If you wanted to be, for lack of a better term, a jerk, he's done with you. And that's just the way he was. If you want to learn, he'll teach you everything. And that's something I've always carried with me throughout my career. If somebody wants to learn from you, give them everything. For one of us to retire or quit from this job and take our knowledge with us, that's the biggest sin out there. Give it all away. Spend your career finding the information, and then spend the rest of your career giving it away. And that was Jeff in a nutshell, man. And he became more than an instructor. He became one of us, and I didn't put it in the book, but my best story with Jeff, we had so many good times together. He came to my kids' graduations parties. He was there for my father's funeral. We did so much stuff together. But my first fire as chief, I had a $500,000 sawmill fire. First fire as chief, head of the department. Normal rural fire, you're having problems with water supply. It's the middle of the day. Guys aren't showing up. And I hear my first due engine gets there. My tanker gets there. We're starting fire attack. And I hear this voice on the radio. And Jeff was legendary in our area for his baritone voice. On the radio, I hear engine 121 to command. Go ahead. Your fill site's established. I have a 5-inch line with a manifold, 3 inches, and adapters in place and ready for service. I'm like, who the hell is that? I should have known who it was. So I asked one of the tanker drivers coming back in. I said, who was that? It was some guy with a big mustache. And he looked really mean. I said, oh, that's Jeff. He just loved the fire service so much and loved our department so much. He would do anything. And then after the fire, we're shutting everything down, and Jeff makes his way up the scene. He was trout fishing in the valley where we lived, and he's still in his waders and his vest. And he goes, hey, don't tell anybody I was here. the local might get mad. They said, Jeff, you were on the radio like 5 times. Everybody knows your voice. The jig's up, brother. And he just laughed and walked away. He didn't care. He just loved the fire service that much.
So you mentioned in the book too, and you just said there about it, he had sort of that reputation, maybe that he might be a mean guy, but
Yeah.
obviously he wasn't. But you also talk about in your book about finding the right mentors, the good ones and not the toxic ones. So how do you separate that? Like if you didn't give him a chance, you might have wrote him off just because of his reputation, but he ended up being a great mentor for you. You might have froze up there. We'll give him a second.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. The right mentors, for younger guys, they follow the guy that's flashy. You know what I mean? The loudest voice in the room, a lot. Gotta love the internet. But like I said, the loudest voice a lot of times will get the attention of young guys, and they're normally early mentors for people, pushing them. What told me personally, like a guy like Jeff, and he showed me what type of mentor I wanted. And I talk about in the book, we were doing a structural burn, and I was a helper back in the day, at Acquired Structure. And we put on a good burn set, and we're coming out, and I said, man, I hope I'm as good as you someday. Just like that. He says, shit, kid. He says, don't be as good as me. He said, be better than me. That's a mentor. A mentor wants you to succeed beyond anything that they've ever done. And that's what a true mentor does to me. It's the guy that's going to give you everything and wants to see you go far in your career.
There's your short.
Yeah. You described in the book, small rural department training until the chief, your brother, instituted some training there. But what do you think is a good strategy or what advice you have for departments today that still struggle with training culture?
Make it fun. That was really the thing for me. And I always looked at this. And when I became chief, we still had nights on training night where only 2 guys show up, and we ended up sitting on the rear tailboard of the engine and you shoot the shit about anything else in the world. And the one thing I passed on to all my officers, and I still have it to this day, especially for volunteers, they're giving you their time. Especially for volunteers now, the time constraints are tougher. If they're giving you an hour and they're coming down on that training night, put something on. Do something. Maximize the training. It doesn't always have to be the 16-hour class. It doesn't always have to be a seminar. If they're giving you an hour of their day, find a way to train them. That's probably the best thing. And I do that at work. My guys laugh at me because I hound so many training hours. But if we sit around the coffee table or the kitchen table and we discuss water supply and secondary supplies, it turns into a conversation. That's training. Most of our battles are fought in our mind before we ever lay our hands on a hose, on an axe, on our PPE. And if you have your mind primed to work, I'm not saying it's the only way, but if you're thinking ahead of the game before the game ever starts, you're already won. And that's a big element of training I think we miss. That along with making it fun, gameplay, competition, as long as it's not mean-spirited. We have to find new and creative ways to keep our people engaged in training.
Yeah, definitely. Just a side note here. We got a message that popped up that said might be having some trouble streaming on Facebook. I think we have some Facebook viewers out there. So if you're on Facebook, shoot me a comment because I'm just curious if everything's working okay with Facebook. Sometimes our streaming platform seems to have a hiccup with Facebook for some reason. So if it is, and you're seeing this, you can switch over to our YouTube stream. But back to rural departments, what is one thing that you think a rural department does better than a big city department?
Oh, that's an easy one. This comes from my teaching days. I taught in the smallest fire departments. I remember teaching pump classes from the tailgate of a pickup truck versus going to a larger department in an urban area. People in rural areas are more invested for the most part because nobody's coming to save them. When you get that committed group of 5 or 10 guys or 15, whatever it may be, that are all from the same town, that's all that's going to be there. And those guys, I love teaching in those, I call it primitive environments, because those guys they couldn't ask enough questions. They wanted to know it because they might not see me again for a long time. And I still talk regularly with a lot of those guys back in Pennsylvania about little things, that they want to know about. And that's, I think, the heart and soul of a good rural department is how they're invested in protecting their own community. It's not just a job to them. They're a figure in their own community.
Yeah. So you're very honest in your book about almost losing your family due to your career. What advice would you give to younger firefighters that are starting to experience that in their lives and how they can correct it and get back on the good path?
Detach. The biggest thing I can say is detach. And here's just a little simple trick. And I don't know if I even talk about the book. I think I do. And I still do it to this day. You know, when I first started work at Lewisburg, I would wear my uniform everywhere, going into duty, coming back, you know, whatever it was. I was proud to be a career firefighter. Then I learned that lesson. Take the uniform off. It's a small, simplistic act and leave it at work. When you come home, you don't have to smell it. Your wife doesn't have to clean it. You're a normal human being when you walk through the door. Normal-ish. Then when you go back to work, put the uniform on. That's a small step of detachment. And 2, don't let your hobbies go, man. The fire service is always going to be there. We're dedicated to it, but you have to be just as dedicated to your life, to your family, for the people around you. Creating that separation is a big part of work-life balance to me.
Well, the other stories, if you don't mind telling the story, but I thought it was pretty interesting from the book, or pretty unique stories about the guy that you guys got a call for cardiac. He wanted a cardiac arrest, and you guys brought him back, and he later became a member of your department.
Yeah, that I have a good add-on to that, which I didn't put in the book. The book was so tough, I had to keep it PG rated, and this won't be bad.
That's right. We're R rated, so you're
okay. His name was Marvin Mail, and he was a fellow that lived in town. And it was one of those training nights, and I was always the last one to leave the station. And it was myself and my brother standing there. Everybody had left from training. We're standing on the front of our EMS unit, just shooting the shit. You know how it goes. And the tones dropped, and it was the perfect situation. We were out the door before the tones were done dropping. His house was literally 2 minutes away from the station. You put the AED on, the magic box says shock advised. Okay. Long story short, we end up getting a pulse back, and Marvin came in about a month or so later. He says, and I was sitting in the chief's office, and he says, "Hey, I want to join." I said, "You want to join?" I said, "Are you good to go?" He's like, "Doctor cleared me. I'm good for everything." He says, "I figure it's the least I can do for you guys saving my life is to get involved." And at first he was only going to be a social member and wasn't going to take fire training. And I was like, okay, whatever anybody can give, I valued. Now he ended up getting cleared. I believe he had his firefighter 1. He became the president of the department. He was just so involved in it. And it was awesome to see. And sadly, he passed away this year. Shortly after the book came out, or before the book came out, he passed away. But it was just, there's the ultimate time where CPR worked. But to dovetail to the funny part of that, and I got to throw my brother under the bus, we went there that night, and Marvin was a mechanic by trade. He carried the little pouch with a mag light in it. We get him to the floor. We put the AED on. We're going to work. We give the shock. And I bumped the mag light, and it turned on. My brother, George, looks at me and goes, "Did that shock turn that thing on?" I said, "Yeah, it did. Don't touch him. He's probably electrified." Yeah, and to this day, we still joke about that, you know. But yeah, the AED did not turn the mag light on.
Yeah,
so that's good that you got a win. I used the AED to shock 13 people, and they all died. So.
Yeah. We paint that picture that if we put the magic box on, they're going to live. The percentages are still low, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I had one back in the day. We used to do first responder shift in our fire department, and I was running the first responder, and I had one down a local movie theater. A lady supposedly just passed out, so I'm like, yeah, I'll run down there. It's an easy call, you know. And I get there, and I'm walking in, and they're like, they're doing CPR on her. I'm like, shit, man. So I get in there, but I hooked the AD up, and it said shock advised. I'm like, this is cool, you know. I get to finally use it, and it shocked, and then
into a bad pattern.
Well, it said movement detected, but when it was analyzed, it said movement detected. So I kept checking, like, nobody's touching her, right? And did it again, said movement detected. And I was actually sort of confused at that point, like, shit, what do I do now? And then medics were just walking. I'm like, thank God. Later on, I asked the assistant chief of the EMS service about it. Apparently, she had a defibrillator, and the battery died on it, or a pacemaker. I'm sorry, and the battery died on it. And when I shocked her, they think it brought the pacemaker back to life just a little bit.
Right.
And that's what the movement detector was. But we ended up doing CPR on her for kind of 25 minutes. And I remember I was sweating, and the one cop actually kept leaning over me. He was dabbing my forehead down.
Yeah.
And
I got to do something to look like they're helping.
Yeah. So we get her in the ambulance. Just as we're putting her in the ambulance, the lady she's with handed her the medic the papers, and it's like, oh, she has these. She had DNR papers.
Oh,
So,
Jeez.
and all that effort for naught. Yeah, but so you refer to your career as a 40-year deployment. What does that phrase mean to you now after all these years?
Well, where that phrase came from, and I'm a big reader. I follow a lot of podcasts, and I hear a lot. We try to compare ourselves to paramilitary. We're paramilitary organizations, and you look at, and I talk about a little bit in the book. Our lives are deployments every day. Every day we have that level of stress that we're, especially on career, even a volunteer house. You're worrying about your community. You're involved. You're invested in your department every day. For whether you're in the business for 5 years or a knucklehead like me that's at 40 plus and don't know how to quit, it becomes part of your life. And talk about in the book with changing your aspect of your life. Your family has to understand it. And I tell a lot of young guys, first thing I ask new guys that come on the job, do you have a wife? Do you have a girlfriend? I know you probably can't ask that under today's standards, but anyways, get them on board, be open with them, tell them what this needs. Don't tell them every gory detail. You don't have to do that. I was blessed. My wife was in the fire department, so that helped. But this thing is a deployment that you get breaks, small breaks, but you are on duty for as long as you're in the business, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is the foundation that your book supports. So let me get the link to that up there. Foundation or 58 Cares. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Foundation 58's out of Eastern Pennsylvania. With Jeff, God bless him. He when he was going through his battle with cancer, they do a lot of work for Pennsylvania responders. They're primarily in the eastern part of the state, but I'm sure their phone would be answered by anybody in the state that are having medical problems, cancer issues. They do what they can, and it isn't like they donated or gave a ton of money, but man, they were consistent to Jeff. They were there for him. Anything that they could do for him, they did. And those small grassroots organizations, they're great because the majority of the money that we're making for them is going to the guys that need it. They have a little bit of a social media program. It isn't like there's a CEO sitting in an office building somewhere making his 6-figure salary off of this. These guys are responders. They're in the business, and their job is to help us when we need them. Especially,
is that a national organization?
No, they're pretty much in Pennsylvania. They do some work into Jersey, I believe.
Okay.
Great guys, very responsive. And when I reached out to them about mentioning them in the book and my idea of trying to get portions of the proceeds to them, they're stand-up dudes. They really are.
So what made you decide to finally write this book? I know you said that early on in your career, you're saying somebody told you to write these stories down, but what made you actually decide to put it in?
Well, after I left Goose Creek and started writing, and I would bounce stuff off my wife. She hears all my harebrained ideas and just sometimes rolls her eyes or walks away. She actually sat down and read some of them, and she went, "These are really good." I thought, heck, might as well keep writing. And then the challenge became, what do I put in there? This is the tip of the iceberg. And you guys sitting at that table, you know how many stories you have lingering around your head. And I started to go, I could tell about that. Oh, no, that's wrong. I wanted to keep it PG. Someday I might write the R-rated version, adults only, of things that go on in the firehouse.
Yeah.
But the catharsis of self-examination of writing the book, and then the stories were worth telling. And I felt they were valuable to a young guy if they can read that book and understand some of the concepts and some of the things, or maybe a guy's halfway through their career, how to maintain that fire in your career and love the job. I love the job as much as I did when I had hair. It's just I move a little slower now. I get to act like the old guy once in a while and act salty, but I still have that same fire in my belly I did when I was 15 years old.
Did you have help writing the book, or did you just put it all together yourself and then call publisher? Or tell us a little bit how do you write a book?
I started writing it and it was a Word document, and then when it started to take shape and you start to organize, I started watching YouTube videos on how to write a book, laying the outline out. And it's not perfect, It's but then once it got to the point where I go, okay, this is almost a finished product. There's a lot of independent publishers out there that you don't have to be Stephen King to submit to put a book in. It's a print.
Look at it and fix it all up.
Yep.
And
you pay a little bit of money. They did some editing. They helped me with the artwork. I basically gave them a manuscript and they helped me along the rest of the way and got it out there for me. So
I can imagine I'm sure it was therapeutic to actually, go through these stories and write them down. And
yeah, I laughed and cried a lot when I was writing the book. Just
Yeah.
you shake your head and there's things that come to the surface that you haven't thought about in years. You go, oh shit, they were good times, or that was a bad time. And it was great therapy to write the book. And I would love to write another one. It's just a matter of finding time,
Oh.
So if there's one thing from the book young firefighters would take away from it, what do you hope they would take away from it? I put you on
Don't
the spot.
suck.
Don't suck.
Try not to
Don't
suck.
suck.
Yeah.
Love the job. We're only on this job for a short period of time. If they take anything away, love the job, but love your family as much as you love the job. Don't abandon one for the other.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
All right, Bob, anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be on here tonight. And, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those mentors I talk about in the book. And I have to give them a shout out, the cast and crew that worked with me as instructors, and advice for young instructors out there: surround yourself with good people. The way the Pennsylvania system works, once you're ordained as a fire instructor, you're kind of on your own. So you're going to depend on your mentors and surround yourself with like-minded people that are just as much in love with the job as you are. And the energy is transferred to your classes. And that crew of guys and gal that worked with me, Tom and Jen McDonald, John Hart, Kerry Azendorf, J.R. Erdley, and whoever else I invited to classes. Because if I invited you, I didn't think you was a turd. Man, have that energy and keep that energy. That's what pushes the line further, and we make the job better than when we found it, So for the young instructors out there, surround yourself with good people, find good mentors, and you're going to find those false mentors, but the right ones will ring true for you. They'll become lifelong friends. So,
All right.
But that's all I got, guys.
That was great.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on. I think it was good and enjoyed the book, and the QR code's still up there. So encourage everybody to go take Amazon and order the book.
We got into Target today and Books A Million. So we're gaining some ground there too.
Nice.
It's a good book.
Yeah, and the proceeds help a good cause. So
yep. So thank you guys.
All right, Bob. Thank you.
Bob.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right. So thank you again for Bob coming on. Let me pop that back off the screen.
He used the term turd twice, and I won't mention his name, but we actually
That's
had
only
a
name
member
turd.
that was, his nickname was Turd.
It was funny. I remember that. So I'm sorry. Here, let me get this off the screen, and I want to
Had a lot of good nicknames.
throw some things up there. I just want to make a mention. Unfortunately, longtime chief of Bethel Park Fire Department passed away. They're going to be having a memorial service on Saturday, November 22nd at 1 p.m. at their Brightwood station. So anybody like to go pay their respects? Remembrance of Daniel Moore, Chief Daniel Moore.
Huge impact on the fire service in this area. Great guy.
Yeah, I think I met him a couple of times on calls. We didn't really run a lot with Bethel, but I think it was a junior when he was chief out there. The other thing, this is from our friends at Bellaterra Stables, and Dawn Brucker sent me this information. They're going to be retiring. City of Pittsburgh is going to be retiring one of their horses, Cannonball, and they're going to be giving them to the Bellaterra Stables that they have therapy horses out there. So this is actually tomorrow, but they're going to be having a procession to take the horse out to Bellaterra, and they're inviting all first responders, I believe, even to take part in the procession if you like. And then afterwards, they're going to have a little get together at the stables, an open house stables. So you can
Send a squad or something. They would love to see it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty neat. It's pretty neat that sort of happy for the horse gets to go out to a good home and retire and help people in the process do some therapy. So you can go to their website, bellaterrastables.org. I think they have some more information on there. And then the news stories I had, this is a follow-up. Remember talking about the firefighters flooding the baseball field?
Yeah.
So they were found not guilty. They were charged with there's two career Montgomery County firefighters were caught on video using a fire engine to flood a baseball field next to a station. According to the charging documents, they were frustrated because the baseballs hitting their vehicles.
I mean, yeah, that's understandable. I mean, I feel like I shouldn't talk about this, but I mean, I'd be a little pissed off too.
So they backed the engine out, pulled the hose out, and they sprayed the fuel down, and thus canceling. I think it was some type of championship games going there, but they were charged with malicious destruction of property, disorderly conduct. Those charges carried potential penalties up to 3 years in prison. Captain Rowley was found not guilty by a judge, and charges against Barnes, the other firefighter, was dismissed. Prosecutors said they respect the decision, even though Rowley admitted to doing it. Montgomery County Fire and Rescue says the criminal case is over, but the internal investigation will now move forward. The duty stations remain the same for now, still active, but with non-public contact.
Did they put a fence up or something?
I don't know.
You know,
Maybe a
raise
net.
the height of the fence. They'll do all this shit, but they won't fix the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe they did. I don't know.
So this is one of the other, this story you actually posted on our site about the Big Beaver Volunteer Fire Company. They announced they notified their borough that they were no longer going to provide fire and emergency services starting January 1st, 2026.
It's happening.
60-day notice was sent to the borough council. The reasons: severe staffing collapse. The department never knows who will show up for fire calls anymore. Sometimes only 1 or 2 members respond. Membership is aging out. There's no new interest. They once had a waiting list. Now there's no draw to join at all. Straub says they can't operate safely or efficiently with current manpower. First notified council in 2019 about a critical shortage of volunteers. For the last 2 years, the department and council have been working on a plan for paid staffing. Council members had acknowledged paid staffing was needed. The town hall in May, residents said they supported hiring paid firefighters, even if it meant a tax increase. As of the October 25th meeting, council voted down a proposal to hire 1 fire administrator, creating a timeline for hiring part-time paid firefighters. Chief Straub said the department put hundreds of hours into planning, and the vote felt like a slap in the face. The mayor reportedly told the department that they are under budget for 2025 and could hire an administrator immediately, even before year end. Days later, council voted the plan down. So what happens now? Big Beaver VFD says they have no safe, reliable manpower to continue unless something changes. The borough will have to have no local fire or EMS response in 2026. Beaver Falls Fire Department, the closest paid fire department, says has not been contacted to provide coverage. KDK, was stories from KDK, reached out to the mayor and council members, and none responded.
It's no secret that this is happening everywhere. A lot of councils, townships, they're just putting the blinders on. Look into it and address the problem now. It's going to be a lot easier to address before things like that happen.
And the crazy thing, I think, too, is like they had a town hall meeting and the residents are in support of even raising taxes if necessary to have a paid.
That's my point. It's been my point every time we talk about this. It's not a difficult problem. Raise the damn taxes and have a fire service. You're responsible for it. Do it.
Yep. So that's pretty much all I had coming up. Don't forget FDNY Battalion Chief Mark Gregory. He's going to be on December 17th. He had a conflict of interest last week. He had to do a training, so we had to reschedule him. So he'll be on December 17th, and we're looking forward to that.
Yep.
Dan, you have anything?
No, that was a good talk with Bob.
Yeah, it was.
It was a good book, and hopefully you guys will go buy it and read it.
Yeah, it supports a good cause. Some of the proceeds go to a good cause. So, and it's a book. I think it was only like $14 paperback. So, yep. It's worth it and good read. I don't know what's going on with our Facebook stream. Every once in a while, our streaming provider messes up with Facebook, but there was some pop up that came. So I don't know if it streamed on Facebook.
Bob freeze up and sent the message.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll have to figure that out. Nobody commented when I asked if anybody's watching on Facebook, but if not, we'll repost the entire video to Facebook, and there's always our YouTube video, our YouTube channel, which seems like it works a little bit better for streaming.
Do you want me to take over for Gino?
Sure.
Here? Gino, hope you get better and try not to suck.
All right. We'll see everybody next week. Thank you.